I hope I can give this book justice because it is a phenomenal book. It is absolutely, in my opinion, a masterpiece in any genre. It's apparently the first, well, maybe not the first of its kind, but one of the first cyberpunk novels. So it's like sci-fi, but it's cyberpunk. Neuromancer by William Gibson. The first time I heard of it was in an article in a publication that I had some poetry published in while I was still in college. And it was this essay that was actually tackling this. In that same article was a reference to Metropolis, Fritz Lang's Metropolis, which is like 1920s sci-fi, very inspirational epic about artificial intelligence, way ahead of its time. This fascinated me, Neuromancer, but I haven't read many sci-fi novels. It's really not my genre, like, that I gravitate to. Like, it's hard for me to figure out how these great writers, like, come up with so many, like, made-up scenarios. So it's quite a gift. Basically, let's see what the back says. Case, that's our lead character, was the sharpest data thief in the Matrix. So Matrix is actually, this word matrix was invented here. Also cyberpunk, the word cyberpunk, I believe, was either invented here or like maybe there was a short story earlier, I believe, by somebody else, where they first used that in a short story. Until an ex-employer crippled his nervous system. Now a new employer has recruited him for a last chance run against an unthinkably powerful artificial intelligence. With a mirror-eyed girl street samurai riding shotgun, he's ready for the silicone quick, bleakly prophetic adventure that upped the ante on an entire genre of fiction. It's true. This was like, I can imagine how this just exploded this genre, So, in the beginning, this is a famous first line, in a book. The sky above the port was the color of television turned to a dead channel. That's a famous first line. Maybe it's because this novel was so influential. So basically, Case, there's so much going on. First of all, I want to talk about the writing. The writing is so good. William Gibson was a very young writer at this point, like in his mid-20s, and living in Vancouver. He's Canadian. He really jam-packed this book. He basically took like an action movie formula and he changed all the elements to make it like this sci-fi thing, cyberpunk, and it moves, it reads like so fast, like it's like non-stop, like, one scene to another, action, 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 cool characters, this cool, cyber girl with the glassy eyes. She's got these fake eyes, like it's like an eye implant, and she's got all these like kind of almost robotic skills, like you would see in the movie Matrix. So she takes out people and stuff. So he's just kind of a bum. He's like in his mid-20s, and his girlfriend was killed, but he's kind of like a druggie, and he's a gamer kind of, but like gaming here is like this, it's tapping into these consoles and living these kind of alternate realities. And you could even travel through this thing called the Bama home. Home was Bama, the sprawl, the Boston-Atlanta metropolitan axis. Program a map to display frequency of data exchange. Every 1,000 megabytes a single pixel on a very large screen. Manhattan and Atlanta burn solid white. Then they start to pulse, the rate of traffic threatening to overload your simulation. Your map is about to go nova. Cool it down. Up your scale. Each pixel 1,000,000 megabytes. At 100 million megabytes per second, you begin to make out certain blocks in Midtown Manhattan. Outlines of 100-year-old industrial parks ringing the old core of Atlanta. I guess you're like visualizing and traveling. So in the movie The Matrix, they're in these like pods. So basically, like when he's strapped into this like module, then he's in this like alternate universe that's like highly detailed and it's like dreamlike, and he can travel. I think they travel like this is kind of like a tube. I was trying to like understand all these elements which were new to me. Like the sprawl is like this connective like tube that like travels that connects this Boston Atlanta metropolitan axis. So it's like the information highway, kind of like that. So anyway, the thing is there's all these like there's this Neuromancer and there's Winter Mute or something like that, and they're trying to connect, and there's all these like interweaving characters, and Case is kind of like the sinew. He's like this kind of gun for hire, but he's kind of like a bit of a bum, but he's willing to do the grunt work, and he's actually kind of enslaved basically at one point because they put this poison in his system that's like supposed to activate unless he does this these errands for him. So Wintermute. So Wintermute is like this artificial intelligence that needs to connect to Neuromancer. And Neuromancer is kind of like a more abstract thing, you know. And there's like rich family. There's so many elements. And I tried to read the synopsis recently in preparation for this, but it's like there's too many elements. Unless I read it to you word by word, it's hard to explain in chronology. But what I loved is like the fast pace, the action, and one of the highlights that I'd like to point out was at the end, like you see, this is the book, and this is the climax. So what I loved was like when it got to the climax, you knew it was the climax because everything led up to it and the writing changed. So there's a little example, like the pace is like fast, and then you get to this and the pace changes. Everything is like just written a little bit different. The whole writing is very poetic, I should say. So, nothing, gray void, no matrix, no grid, no cyberspace. The deck was gone, his fingers were, and on the far rim of consciousness, a scurrying, a fleeting impression of something rushing toward him across leagues of black mirror. He tried to scream. There seemed to be a city beyond the curve of beach, but it was far away. So beautiful language, even like beyond the curve of beach, you know, like everything is so tight in this. I mean, it's really inspiring, especially since he was a young writer, but I mean, he must have been a prodigy because to think of like the amount of writing he would have done to tighten this book to such an extent. And there is probably like something smart about writing into a new genre, like to kind of create something new and create your own language. There's something really intelligent about that because it's like there's genres out there that are popular, like whatever, romance or sci-fi or fantasy, which are very big now. And you could write just to those genres. But he he made his own little thing, and that takes balls, but it also, well, it takes balls, yeah, most of all, I think. But to have talent with that, and like to have hard work of like editing and coming up with like this beautiful language, this beautiful plot, action, throughout, it's an impressive feat. And everything is just wonderful. I don't know, I mean, really, I just recommend this book. It's well written. I don't know if I could find something else to kind of quote that would like give you a good indication of, let's see if this is interesting. Archipelago, the islands, torus spindle cluster, human DNA spreading out from gravity's steep well like an oil slick. Call up a graphics display that grossly simplifies the exchange of data in the L5 archipelago. One segment clicks in as red solid, a massive rectangle dominating your screen. Freeside. Freeside is many things, not all of them evident to the tourists who shuttle up and down the well. Freeside is brothel and banking nexus, pleasure dome and Freeport, border town and spa. Freeside is Las Vegas and the hanging gardens of Babylon, an orbital Geneva, and home to a family inbred and most carefully refined, the industrial clan of Tessier and Ashpool. There you go. So you have a description of Tessier Ashpool, which is a big player following, I believe they might be introduced here for the first time, in this section, and then like they're a big player throughout the rest of the novel. So beautiful language. I love his like one word sentences, or a couple of word sentences that are like really nice punctuations, which is reminiscent of Cormac McCarthy. This is like early 80s, so I don't know if Cormac McCarthy was like a big influencer in his writing that way. He hadn't honed it as well probably by then. But yeah, so William Gibson, phenomenal. This is the only book I've read by him so far. I don't know, I just don't read a lot of sci-fi, but this is one book I will absolutely read again. It's, like I said, fast-paced, action, beautiful writing. Some things to me were like kind of confusing, like I didn't know all the terminology. So you're just kind of brought in and all these terms are like new to you, and you're just kind of finding your way. So it's all this new world, and that's why it deserves another reading. But, everybody is so compelling. There's so much going on, so many intriguing characters with like cool visuals to them, like the glass-eyed girl, and there's this like hacker later on that like has to get like face reconstruction surgery, and he's like kind of, they pretend he's dead, and like he fakes his own death and things like that. There's lots of really, really, really cool stuff and incredible writing. So one last thing that I want to mention is I love this. I liked how he ends the book with Vancouver, July 1983. I thought that was a cool thing, and I might do that in future writing, like just date the thing. Like, I don't know if that's like because you want to, it's a sci-fi novel and you want to kind of indicate like, hey, this was written then. And then also it's written past tense. It's a narrator describing things in the past, but it's in the future, so that's kind of interesting. I think that's an interesting choice. That's what I'm going to say about Neuromancer by William Gibson. Phenomenal book, highly recommended. Let me know if you've read it, and add things in the comments that I'm sure like I left out. Maybe I could have expressed a little better. I was just mostly caught up in my enthusiasm for it. But you let me know what you think. And if you haven't read it and you do read it, I'd love to hear your opinion of it. So thank you. Enjoy.